What are your plans for the future, vying to be the fifth member of the Four Horsemen of Atheism? No, presuming you mean the Four Horsemen of New Atheism there. I hope it should be clear by now that I'm really not trying to affiliate with the New Atheist movement. I know I kind of used to. I used to really, really, really like Christopher Hitchens. I've even got a bust of him sat on my shelf just there if you hadn't noticed already. And of course, I've had Richard Dawkins on the podcast and would love to have Sam Harris on too. But I really don't think that these guys are particularly, how can I say this, theologically adequate? I don't know. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. I guess I just haven't found their philosophy, if it can even be called that, particularly adequate when it comes to discussing the existence of God. I mean, Christopher Hitchens, obviously a fantastic polemicist, but just nothing of philosophical substance, as I've discussed at length in a previous video. Again, the link is in the description. Richard Dawkins, fantastic scientist, yada yada. But again, I'm reading The God Delusion. Who was it? That's right, it was Terry Eagleton's. Eagleton once wrote, "Imagine someone holding forth on biology whose only knowledge of the subject is the Book of British Birds, and you have a rough idea of what it feels like to read Richard Dawkins on theology." And I think he's probably right there. I mean, there's a reason why over the past 3 years of studying philosophy at Oxford, someone like Richard Dawkins hasn't been named once except to be essentially ridiculed in the science and religion paper. It's a bit unfortunate, but it's kind of just the way it is. I think the biggest skill that the New Atheists had collectively was their oratory skills, right? They could debate, they could speak to an audience, and they could win them over, right? But when you actually sit down and analyze the philosophical substance of what they're saying, you find that there's not actually much substance to be analyzed in the first place. So no, I mean, I'm not trying to kind of make atheism a big deal. It's just kind of there. It's just, yeah, I don't believe in God. Whoop-de-doo. I don't really want to make a big song and dance about it. I'm also increasingly entering into this debate about the usage of the word atheism and whether it's appropriately used to describe simply a lack of belief in God. I've always very strongly advocated that atheism just means a lack of belief in God. But studying at university, I found that this just kind of doesn't exist in the academy, right? Like in academic works, it's always used, the term, atheism, and it's always defined in all of the dictionaries, all of the philosophical dictionaries, as the belief that God does not exist. And I thought that, whatever, it doesn't really matter because whatever term you use, what matters is the actual belief. I mean, I could call myself an atheist, I could call myself a theist, by which I mean that I don't believe in God. As long as you understand what I mean by the term, it doesn't matter, right? But there is actually a really interesting discussion around the term and whether it even makes sense to say that atheism is just a lack of belief in God. That is essentially a brain state, whereas theism is not a brain state, but a proposition, right? Theism is something that can be true or false. And so it seemed that atheism, which appears at least on the surface to be the negation of theism, would also have to be some kind of proposition. But if it's just the lack of belief in God, then it's nothing more than a psychological state, which it seems weird to contrast with a proposition. And, in the past, I've appealed to the Greek origin of the word. I've said, look, the Greek a meaning without and theos meaning God put together to make atheism. That's what atheism must mean. But look, this is clearly not a very helpful way to define terms. The Greek origin of the word idiot is from idios, meaning private. And, I sometimes am somewhat of a private man. Does that mean I'm an idiot? Well, it's not why I'm an idiot, but you see what I'm saying. It's not particularly helpful to just refer to the Greek origins of terms to give us an indication of how we should be using them today.